All right, we've got a fun one going on here. That's right. We're talking more smoke, okay? More smoke to the cook, if that's what you want to do, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a spoiler. Personally, I'm pretty happy with the smoke flavor I get off the dual fire as it is. In fact, I'm very happy with it. Deep color, deep bark, um, deep flavor. It's just worked out very well. But knowing that people like to try and, say, hey, you can take it up a little further, get it more like an offset smoker. Um, okay, I'm going to look into that. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. Different ways you can add a little bit more smoke to the mix. Now, the fuel types we have: briquettes, lump charcoal, wood chunks. Okay. And in this case, the Jealous Devil, smoking wood blocks that are the whiskey barrel wood blocks. I've also got the Jealous Devil pellets for adding additional smoke, and of course some wood chips, different flavors of wood chips here. Now, to get that smoke created, you have a couple of vehicles to work with. You've probably already seen the smoke tube. We'll go through it anyway. This rig, worked fairly well for me. You may have seen the smoke tray. That works pretty decent. But both of these, have their own challenges to a degree. This one in particular, we'll cover that. And then, of course, we got the smoke box. And one of the things that you normally have in the smoke box is the wood chips. And then we've got a smoke generator. This particular one can use both wood chips and pellets. Okay, and we'll walk through that. You also may have seen people do different things with respect to the smoke box to get more smoke flavor out. What I mean by that is putting some charcoal briquettes in place and then some wood chunks on top of it to get you that extra smoke burn and flavor infusion going in. And I will say, I did an experiment with that. That was pretty interesting. I'm going to share those learnings with you here too. Okay. Now, at the end of the day, I've landed on a couple of things. And again, I'm just going to give you the spoilers up front. One, I really like the smoke generator for cold smoking. This winter, when it comes to doing cold smoked salmon again, this is going to be where I'm going to head to. But when it comes to working the indirect side on a long, low and slow smoke, I've got a different method that is going to come into play. And it is a twist on using the smoke box with charcoal and wood chunks, but not much of a twist from what everybody else is doing in the charcoal and wood chunk, wood block grilling world. Okay, and again, a spoiler alert there. I don't have it pictured on the table, but I've got a system lined up for doing the snake method. Okay, that's where you line your charcoal up, like dominoes, top it with some wood chunks, light one end of it, and you just let that thing cook on down and add some smoke to it. I think you're going to find it very interesting. Now, I'm not cooking with it in this video. However, that is going to be my next video because I'm going to see what the flavor profile turns out to be. For this video, it's really just a survey of what you see in front of you, plus that one trick. So I hope you enjoy this. I did have a lot of fun doing this. I will say though, I don't shower at night too often, but I was showering every night because man, that smoke was definitely, all over the place. Anyhow, enjoy. Again, welcome to the channel, my friends, and let's get started on the smoke tray. Now, the promise I had when I got this smoke tray was a 12-hour smoke. Okay, 12 hours, at least that was the goal there. So how does this smoke tray work? Well, basically you load the pellets up in it, you light one end, and it just snakes its way through this little, pellet maze. Now, my attempt at the time when I was shooting this video was to cold smoke the salmon. What I didn't take into consideration was all the heat coming off those burning pellets. And here we are lighting the pellet maze, if you will, in the pellet tray. And it's pretty straightforward, but, because there wasn't a lot of airflow, it just snuffed itself out. This said, though, very easy to use, but that 12 hours is unreliable, and it generates heat. As you can see, the temperatures are, they get up. And then again, as I mentioned, airflow is critical, but that airflow is also going to impact the burn as well. Now for the smoke tube, which are basically everywhere, you see these everywhere, these promised a 5-hour burn and lots of smoke, okay? Load them up from the top, get it all set up, and then basically, take your torch and light those things up, okay? Pretty easy to do. You let those things burn for about 5 minutes. Once you get past that 5-minute burn, in this case I just capped them off. You snuff out that flame, and then the smoking starts to occur. Basically you just have this burn down like a candle that occurs over that period of time. Now I was pretty impressed. I ran both of these at the same time, little to no airflow on the direct side, but yet they still kept on burning well. Big difference when compared to that smoke tray. And again, turning out a fair amount of smoke, relatively speaking, okay? At the end of the day, it burned clean through. Everything burned all the way down. And once I let this thing cool all the way, it was pretty easy to clean. Basically, as you can see here, just dumped it out. So, easy to use. You can get that 5 hours. It does generate heat, so not really something I'm going to use for any of my cold smoking, but might use it to add extra smoke flavor to a cook. Now the smoke generator, on the other hand, did catch my eye in terms of being able to use it for cold smoking. Now here, the promise is you can get 5 to 12 hours worth of variable smoke, and it filters out all the water. You can run pellets or wood chips. Pretty flexible, proposal here all in all. Again, you light this thing up. Now you got to light it up with the air pump that's the bottom right there. Bottom left, on max to start with. And man, let me tell you, it just cranks the smoke out when you turn this thing on max. And it just really had me wondering, is this too much? Because there's a lot of smoke coming out of this thing. And, I started trying to dial it down, but it was tricky. I, turned it down and got it to a point where it snuffed out a couple of times. So it's not linear in terms of being able to dial it down. Now, their promise for, getting rid of the water, not letting the water, go through, well, I saw a fair amount of water after the first use. And that water and tar started building up even more when I did the wood chips after the second use, okay? You had to clean that stuff up quick, otherwise it was going to, stick and stain things. But it burned pretty clean, all said and done. Everything went good. A little bit more involved, and that variable airflow is valuable, but you got to really work with it because too little air and you snuff it out. The moisture buildup definitely is messy, but again, this is perfect, I think, for cold smoking. But is it too much smoke? That's my question. And I've got that hole where I had the rotisserie, so I'm going to use that on my next cold smoke. So let's talk about the smoke box. Okay, by design, you're supposed to use these with wood chips that have been soaked in water for 30 minutes. So I did that, and then loaded this into place, lit them up, let the fire go out, and I just let that smoke. The question I had was, is this better smoke? It's wood chips in this case, but 90 minutes later, it was out. But it did throw out a lot of heat, right? So this was pretty straightforward to use. Again, subject to airflow, burns really hot, so it's going to go out pretty quick, when fully loaded. Now, I also use the smoke box in a different configuration, using this kind of, small smoke box snake, where we light up and one end and let it pass through like dominoes in terms of heating the coals and then smoldering and burning the wood that's on top of it. Okay, this actually worked pretty well. Again, lit it up with the torch, got that going. Okay, took a little while to get the coals going, but once they got going, it just went like you would expect. It burned all the way through. So in short, burns hot, works fast, but may not be right for a long smoke, okay? And it got me thinking, I've seen this done on a bullseye where they use that snake method. Could that work on the dual fire? So I grabbed a cast iron pan that my wife had, just designated for Goodwill, and I set up a snake inside of this cast iron pan. And I may have put too many wood chunks in there. I kind of got carried away with it, but I wanted to see how this was going to do. And, sure enough, this started to smoke pretty well. I went ahead and turned on the grill, keeping everything on low just to see what it would add. And, it burned hot, smoldered everything as intended. But here's the interesting thing. Smooth, no impact on the temp control, except till the end. I got this bump at the end, which I think may have been tied to that, stack up of wood or the snake collapsing. So next, I went ahead and changed it up a little bit with a Lodge cast iron griddle that was 16 by 9 that was a perfect fit right in that area. So as you can see here, I set up another snake and basically lit one end of it with some fire starters and got that domino, going, that heat domino starting to go. Went ahead and said, hey, let me repeat the process. Threw everything back in, okay, and said, let's just simulate a long, low, and slow cook. So once I got everything in and, put my sensors in place, got that going, I went ahead and turned the grill on to low. Now, of course, I couldn't help myself. I needed to take a peek at this, right? So I pulled everything back out, and sure enough, almost 2 hours later, it's burning pretty well. Everything's just smoldering down, and the additional smoke was evident that was coming, out of the stack compared to what I usually see. And 2 hours in, we were holding steady. Now, after 6.5 hours, I did see a bump, but it wasn't as steep as before. So after 7 hours, I called the test off and took a look at everything, and really not sure why it had that bump, but maybe it was just the total number of charcoal, that were briquettes that were lit at the same time. But everything ashed up and burned through all the way. And yeah, there were some hot spots that's to be expected. But this worked out surprisingly well. So here's the key takeaways, right? That Lodge griddle was the perfect size, 16 by 9, fit the envelope very well. 7-hour hang time plus, low, slow, overnight cooks, this is a help. Sure, it burns hot, but it doesn't impact, the ability of the recteq, to control anything. So that's great. So again, I think this has promise for low and slow overnight cooks for me. And it does require a little bit of under the grate setup, but I think it'll be worth it in the end if it adds the flavor that everybody talks about, okay? Because it's got the charcoal and the wood chunk, right in there. So at the end of the day, what did I learn from this whole exercise? For cold smoking, the smoke generator is what I'm going to go to. It keeps the heat away. With respect to 1 to 2 hour smoking, I think the smoke box is good for charcoal and wood flavor. For 3 to 5 and getting wood flavor, again, I'm back on the smoke generator and the smoke tubes because I can use 1 or 2 of those at the same time and even go longer if I need to with the smoke tube. Now for 6 or more hours, which is wood flavor, I think the smoke generator could do it, but it's going to be tricky. Now the smoke tube's good, you use the first one and then the second one. Now for that low and slow overnight cook I was targeting, the Lodge snake, I think this has a chance. And I'm going to put that to the test, as I said, with a brisket coming up soon. And yeah, I know there's a lot of choices out there. The Jealous Devil pellets and wood chunks and the wood chips that I found, those were all good choices, I think. You got that smoke tray, the smoke box, and the smoke tubes. Again, they all work, some a little better than others. And then that smoke generator, again, for some cold smoking. I'm really looking forward to doing that in the wintertime and putting that to use. But again, as I said before, that Lodge snake, that's my next test. I'm going to put that into a cook, and it should be nice. Well, I hope so anyway. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Oh, here we go again. It's Zen time. Man, does time fly. 10 years ago, we had some crazy Lay's potato chip flavors. I met this lady who did my blood work. I met this person here who gave me a nice haircut. She was good. This guy examined my head, said I was okay. This person here gave me a good grill. Well, teeth-wise, that is. She made sure my peepers were peeping good. That was nice. Got a workout on treadmill for the first time. Then I met this guy who reminded me that prostate health is important. River. Until until next time, and don't forget to get your friends to tune in and like and subscribe.